Hey, bud. What do you think of my fancy purple hair? Kind of cool, huh? Decided to do something a little different. Anywho, here we go. Friday. Yay, we made it through the week. And we are getting ready to do chapter 11 of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Are you ready? Here we go. If you remember, last time Charlie found a dollar bill in the street in the snow. Let's see what he did with it. Chapter 11, The Miracle. Charlie entered the store and laid the damp dollar bill on the counter. "One Wonka's Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mallow Delight," he said, remembering how much he had loved the one he had on his birthday. The man behind the counter looked well fed. He had big lips and fat cheeks and a very fat neck. The fat around his neck bulged out all around the top of his collar like a rubber ring. He turned and reached behind him for the candy bar. Then he turned back again and handed it to Charlie. Charlie grabbed it and quickly tore off the wrapper and took an enormous bite. Then he took another and another. And oh, the joy of being able to cram large pieces of something sweet and solid into his mouth. The sheer blissful joy of being able to fill one's mouth with rich, solid food. "You look like you wanted that one, Sonny," the shopkeeper said pleasantly. Charlie nodded, his mouth bulging with chocolate. The shopkeeper put Charlie's change on the counter. "Take it easy," he said. "It'll give you a gut ache if you swallow it like that without chewing." Charlie went on wolfing the candy. He couldn't stop. In less than half a minute, the whole thing had disappeared down his throat. He was quite out of breath, but he felt marvelously, extraordinarily happy. He reached out a hand to take his change, and then he paused. His eyes were just above the level of the counter. They were staring at the little silver coins lying there. The coins were all dimes, and there were 9 of them altogether. Surely it wouldn't matter if he just spent one more. I think, he said quietly, "I think I'll have just one more of those candy bars, the same kind as before, please." "Well, why not?" the shopkeeper said, reaching behind him again and taking another Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mallow Delight from the shelf. He laid it on the counter. Charlie picked it up, tore off the wrapper, and suddenly, from underneath the wrapper, there came a brilliant flash of gold. Charlie's heart stood still. "It's a golden ticket!" screamed the shopkeeper, leaping a foot in the air. "You've got a golden ticket! You found the last golden ticket! Oh my gosh, what do you know? Come look at this, everyone. The kids found Wonka's last golden ticket. There it is, right there in his hands." It seemed as though the shopkeeper might be going to have a fit. "In my shop, too," he cried. "He found it right here in my own little shop. Somebody call the newspapers quick and let them know. Watch out now, Sonny. Don't tear it as you run rapid. That thing's precious." In a few seconds, there was a crowd of about 20 people clustered around Charlie, and many more were pushing their way in from the street. Everybody wanted to get a look at the golden ticket and at the lucky finder. "Where is it?" somebody shouted. "Hold it up so we can all see." "There it is. There, I can see it. See the gold shining?" someone else shouted. "How did he manage to find it, I'd like to know," said a large boy angrily. 20 bars a day I've been buying for weeks and weeks." "Think of all the free stuff he'll be getting, too," another boy said enviously. "A lifetime supply." "He'll need it, that skinny little boy," a girl said, laughing. Charlie hadn't moved. He hadn't even unwrapped the golden ticket from around the candy bar. He was standing very still, holding it tightly with both hands while the crowd pushed and shouted all around him. He felt quite dizzy. There was a peculiar floating sensation coming over him, as though he were floating up in the air like a balloon. His feet didn't seem to be touching the ground at all. He could hear his heart thumping away loudly somewhere near his throat. At that point, he became aware of a hand resting lightly on his shoulder, and when he looked up, he saw a tall man standing over him. "Listen," the man said. "I'll buy it from you. I'll give you $50. How about that? And I'll give you a nice new bicycle as well, okay?" "Are you crazy?" said a woman who was standing equally close. "Why, I'd give him $500 for that ticket. You want to sell me that ticket for $500, young man?" "That's quite enough of that," the shopkeeper shouted, pushing his way through the crowd and taking Charlie firmly by the arm. "You leave that kid alone, will you? Make way. Let him out." And to Charlie, as he led him to the door, he whispered, "Don't you let anybody have it. Take it straight home, quickly, before you lose it. Run all the way and don't stop till you get there. You understand?" Charlie nodded. You know something, the shopkeeper said, pausing a moment and smiling at Charlie. I have a feeling you needed a break like this. I'm awfully glad you got it. Good luck to you, Sonny. Thank you, said Charlie, and off he went, running through the snow as fast as his legs would go. And as he flew past Mr. Wonka's factory, he turned and waved at it and sang out, I'll be seeing you real soon. And 5 minutes later, he arrived at his own home. Chapter 12. What it said on the golden ticket. Charlie burst through the front door shouting, Mother, Mother, Mother! Mrs. Bucket was in the old grandparents' room, serving them their evening soup. Mother, yelled Charlie, rushing in on them like a hurricane. I've got it! Mother, look, the last golden ticket! It's mine! I found some money in the street, I bought 2 candy bars, and the second one had a golden ticket, and there were crowds of people all around me wanting to see it, and the shopkeeper rescued me, and I ran all the way home, and here I am! It's the 5th golden ticket, Mom, and I found it! Mrs. Bucket simply stood and stared, while the 4 old grandparents, who were sitting up in bed, balancing bowls of soups on their laps, dropped their spoons with a clatter and froze against their pillows. For about 10 seconds, there was absolute silence in the room. Nobody dared to speak or move. It was a magic moment. Then, very softly, Grandpa Joe said, You're pulling our legs, Charlie, aren't you? You're having a little joke. I am not, cried Charlie, rushing up to the bed and holding out the large and beautiful golden ticket for him to see. Grandpa Joe leaned forward, took a close look, his nose almost touching the ticket. The others watched him, waiting for the verdict. Then very slowly, with a slow and marvelous grin spreading all over his face, Grandpa Joe lifted his head and looked straight at Charlie. The color was rushing to his cheeks, his eyes were wide open, shining with joy, and in the center of each eye, right in the very center, in the black pupil, a little spark of wild excitement started dancing. Then the old man took a deep breath, and suddenly, with no warning whatsoever, an explosion seemed to take place inside of him. He threw up his arms and yelled, Yippee! And at the same time, his long, bony body rose up out of the bed. His bowl of soup went flying into the face of Grandma Josephine, and in one fantastic leap, this old fellow of 96 and a half, who hadn't been out of bed in the last 20 years, jumped to the floor and started doing a dance of victory in his pajamas. Yippee! He shouted. 3 cheers for Charlie. Hip, hip, hooray! At this point, the door opened and Mr. Bucket walked into the room. He was cold and tired, and he looked it. All day long, he'd been shoveling snow in the streets. Cripey, what's going on in here? It didn't take them long to tell him what had happened. I don't believe it. It's not possible, said Mr. Bucket. Show him the ticket, Charlie, shouted Grandpa Joe, who was still dancing around the floor like a dervish in his striped pajamas. Show your father the 5th and last golden ticket in the world. Let me see it, Charlie, Mr. Bucket said, collapsing into a chair and holding out his hand. Charlie came forward with a precious document. It was the very beautiful thing, this golden ticket, having been made, so it seemed, from a sheet of pure gold, hammered out almost to the thinness of paper. On one side of it, printed by some clever method in jet black letters, was the invitation itself from Mr. Wonka. Until next time, bud. Love you. Kisses. Miss you.